Hey guys, let's here bringing you another video. Now, welcome to a big dev update. This is a topic that obviously is very, controversial and all that, and it's about Vanguard. So the upcoming anti-cheat to League of Legends. I wanted to definitely cover this because one, I do obviously a lot of dev videos anyway, but with my game design background, I hope I can just shed some things on it and try to like make people okay with it more. Because ultimately, I know people are skeptical because it's kernel level based system access and all that, but it'll be fine. And what this article is, I've had a very quick read through, is them basically saying, what is it? Why do we need to have it? And kind of justifying it, because there's a lot of people that kind of don't think it's justified in some places, but the data obviously that is released in this article kind of puts in perspective it is. And then also when this article came out, there was a Reddit thread, and Riot did answer some questions that people had. Some of the answers actually did surprise you. So, yeah. So, the first thing is the how and why of anti-cheat. So, it's getting to be about that time, and I must once again extend to you our credential anti-cheat greetings. There's Mirage of Penguins, an anti-cheat artisan with lifetime 85 million bans served. That's pretty good. And I'm manifesting today to talk to you about Vanguard. So one thing it is worth knowing, if you're in a anti-cheat title, Pirate Software has spoken about this before. One of the accolades that they actually personally have, they, as a professional anti-cheat software developer kind of thing, they all keep actually track of how many people they've banned. So this Penguin guy has banned 85 million. That's on the higher end, it is worth knowing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Pirate Software, he might have been at like 20 million or something like that. So yeah, he's banned a lot of people, and obviously, he's not there clicking the manual ban button. Software that he's developed, and then when they've done ban waves, that's how he's getting accreditation of that. But you actually may have already suffered through our LoL anti-cheat literature in the past, and here is some of the recommended, so you can read that. Feel free to skim through it, but this material is known to the state of California to cause bone lengthening, and okay, so they're trying to make a bit of jokes. I don't really care about that. The news of Vanguard and LoL was certainly divisive. After all, the majority of players are not cheating, and no one is exactly thrilled at the notion of installing more stuff solely because cheaters can't figure out how to fight fair. Anti-cheat is a shadowy game, and the darkness we usually operate in has the unfortunate side effect of generating a lot of confusion, concern, and frankly misinformation. That's a big one, again, especially with the internet nowadays. So strap in and we'll try to shine the brightest light possible on how Vanguard gets the job done. There's one this one's a little long, but I promise there'll be some pictures. So basically it's coming, it's the way of it. And there's nothing you can do about that. Like, I've had people say to me, I'm stopping playing League and it will stop them doing it. No, it's happening, because 99% of people are not fear-mongering because of it. They just are going, cool, okay, it'll help the game overall, and we're just getting on with it. I'm sure they'll say it within this article. It's not looking at your PC. I know it's not kernel-based, but the League client itself can scan your computer. Like, you've already installed a software from Riot. Yes, it's not kernel-based, but if you've got anything dodgy on your PC, I'm sure you're not hiding it in your kernel files half the time. Like, they already can see that information if they really wanted to. They're not going to, but they can. So, yeah. So, cheating in League 101. So, League of Legends is a fairly secure video game. The server stimulates the entirety of the game state, and the client is really only responsible of making requests to it, often referred to as an authoritative model. It essentially means that our servers is the final arbiter of truth, and things like sending spells on cooldown should fail once we've added enough server validation. This is why we don't see many exploits anymore, and instead most cheaters resort to input automation. So that basically what they're saying is, you can't like hack into the game and just change all the stats and make you an absolute god. Like, that doesn't exist in League. It's server based, and the server is constantly checking that everything is correct. So you can't really do that. You don't have access to that level of data or anything. If you're playing a Steam game that has your, I'm sure a lot of you have played private server, Rust or private server Arc. You get given the server files and you can manipulate the server files to have faster XP and all that stuff. We don't get those files for League of Legends. It's on their server side. We're not hosting anything. They don't release that, obviously, out to the public. So you can't do it that way. So the way that people cheat in League is known as scripting, and it's all about input. And input automation is basically a robot, for want of a better word, is play parts of the game for you. In its most common two ways is it auto aims or auto dodges. And obviously, usually it's very obvious when it's happening. And that's why a lot of them do get banned quite quick. But again, I will just say in the Reddit thread, which I would recommend, reading through, they actually did name a few of the champions and things that they have to look into more often than not. So they're saying here, for example, they're just explaining what it is, which I've already kind of done. But like frame perfect Zeri. So Zeri actually is one of the biggest scripting champions in the game now. Xerath, by the way, who is historically the scripting champion, he was apparently 8th. He's the 8th most common champion to script on. It was something like Zeri, Jinx, and I can't remember the last one were the top 3. Even Jax was very common to script on. And if you're like, what the hell? Dodging. Again, they don't have a auto attack, but all these Zeri, it's perfect movement of dodging, and that's basically what they use it for. And obviously, I've always said it, I think most of us do, and I'm sure there's probably someone watching this who either scripts actively or has. I don't get the point of it. You're not playing the game. You're not getting the thrill of actually being the player. You're not getting the rank. A robot's doing it. It's not you. So again, I've always found it really bizarre, but that's just me. So scripted persistence. So here we get some data, which is going to be very eye-opening, I think, to a lot of people. So obviously what they're doing is they're trying to basically say why League needs an anti-cheat or a better one. So our first problem is that cheating is addictive and scripters are persistent. LoL is a free-to-play game, and one ban is never enough. So regular suspensions have stoop up a saturated secondary account market, and the barrier to re-entry is only the cost of a fresh level 30, which at the time of this article is about $2, with a side of large fries. Great. So this type of quantity over quality pricing strategy is made possible because, you guessed it, the accounts themselves are leveled up by scripting applications, resulting in a loop that allows cheaters to iterate against us infinitely. So like, they're the botted accounts that obviously I tell you guys. So you can spot a botted account from a mile away. Usually in my games, it's an account that has a 60+% win rate. It's level 30 something. You scroll down their match history and it's been leveled up by intro bot games. And, sometimes people say, oh, I leveled my account in intro bot games. Yeah, a lot of the time you were playing a similar champion, especially that these are one trick sometimes. And then they leveled playing all random champions, didn't have great performances in intro bot games, and then jump into solo queue, get to Diamond 1 with a 70% win rate. It's too obvious. So one thing that Vanguard, I will say, would be very good at, it will be able to tell these accounts instantly. So in theory, the bot account market should vanish basically overnight when this is implemented. So the data, just by the way here, so it goes from 2022 to the end of 2023. So you can see when they are doing ban waves, by the way. So games with a cheater weekly, so percentage of globally games with a scripter, and in brackets, or a bot. So this is where some of the data that Riot has released, which again we'll go over here, it's like, 1 in 15 games as a scripter or botter in it. Yeah, it will be bots. Scripting is actually quite rare, more or less. So out of 1 in 15, most of these will be a botted account. In my games, I would say if I play 10 games of solo queue in one day, I'd say 6 or 7 of those games could have a fresh level 30 in it. And the odds are a lot of them are botted accounts. And that will count towards the data. So you can see here that it peaks 15% of games globally played had a cheater when they count as a scripter or a botter in it, and that was in the middle of 2023. I remember that. Remember we all were complaining about what the hell is going on, and that's when I was like, I'm leveling a new account, and that's obviously where my Mundo's Nurse account has come, because it was the influx of brand new fresh level 30 accounts, and they obviously had stupidly crazy MMR. And you can see here, like, obviously the, peaks up at 15%, Riot decide, right, we're going to do a ban wave. They do a ban wave. That's what this massive spike is. One day, bam, they ban thousands of accounts, and it dips because obviously those accounts are the ones that are mainly getting banned, and then it peaks back up because all that they've done, all the people that got banned, bought new ones. And you can see here that they are actively fighting it more since the end, or since, like, I don't know, August maybe, or something of that nature, of 2023, roughly. That's when they're starting to do more, just not big ban waves. They're starting just to do more frequent bans every day, every week. And obviously they are still doing the big ban waves, but that leaves us at the end of 2023, which again is 4 months ago. About what, 7% of games are still having a botter or scripter in it. And remember, Riot did announce at the end of last year that they are starting to detect bots. It's not great because it's using the old anti-cheat system, but yeah. So it's more than you think. And just to make it very clear, because I've even seen it online on Twitter and Reddit, of people like trying to defend the bot accounts. People going, why are they so bad? So the reason why the bot accounts are so bad is what Riot have set up here. It's the loop of usually either people that do script, so actually cheat, or be really toxic, are the exact players that are buying those accounts. And it's a loop. They're crazy toxic, or they cheat, they get banned, they buy another account, they do it again, they buy another account, they do it again. If the botted accounts go away, it does one of two things. It either forces that player to, you know, repent and actually be better and don't be toxic or cheat to get banned, so they actually have to be a good League of Legends player, or they have to be, well, they either quit the game because they're like, well, now my whole thing is gone, I'm just going to get banned, and then I have to level my own account. That's going to take a while. Exactly. So these players don't have that patience to level their own account because they know the way that they play, they're just going to get banned again. That's why getting rid of the botted accounts, it does a big impact for making the game overall a better place for everybody apart from the cheaters. And again, botted accounts, in my mind, like Riot is saying, is a version of a cheat. So throughout 2023, the lovable rascals on our anti-cheat team have been sneaking detections into the LoL client that offers glimpses into the size of the scripting epidemic. These cheeky security maneuvers, also called honeypots or spicy values, only work once, and any bans issued on them will be met with excess scrutiny, followed by their immediate discovery in cheat communities, which is very true. There's cheat communities, Discord servers is basically where it's commonly, it used to be forums, and it's a cat and mouse race when it comes to anti-cheat and cheaters. That they want to cheat, they're terrible at games, they need to get the you know, the rank that they want, but not fair. So they are constantly trying to develop ways to circumnavigate anti-cheat. And they have whole communities working towards it of the like-minded poopy individuals, and that's what anti-cheat people are trying to beat. And by the way, a lot of these, you know, anti-cheat Discord servers and stuff, there'll be rioters in that. 100%. Like they'll be in those communities themselves, looking at what they're all saying. But anyway, so we only have so many tricks up our sleeves. So this pattern is about as sustainable as bunker fuel. However, we now have access to mankind's greatest weapon, statistics. So in recent months, as many as 1 in 15 games globally has a scripter or botter in it, but in some regions, this number has been as high as 1 in 5. Cheating isn't really region-specific. Cheaters just go wherever cheating is easiest. In Eastern countries, we see higher rates of scripting because they're getting spillover from cheaters in China and Korea, both of which have region-exclusive anti-cheats, and more importantly, identity requirements for gaming from their local governments, which is very true. To have an account in Korea, you need to actually link your social security, basically, number with it. It's actually where, as crazy as it sounds, I believe a player in South Korea went to jail or got in trouble for being incredibly toxic in a league game because they know who you are. You're not anonymous. Other players don't know who you are, but if you are absolutely nuts and crazy, you're making threats in a league client, and it gets reported upward, they know who you are, because to play the game, you need a social security number. It's linked to you. And obviously, as well as that, if you're playing on not an account that belongs to you, it's technically identity theft in Korea too. It's way more serious out there. But yeah, so it's only worth making cheats if there's glory worth stealing. So attempts at cheating are actually the sign of successful competitive environment, which is true. However, this is far too many for a game with Olympic level ambitions, and we want to win. We want the win to mean something. We must protect its integrity, which I agree with. So Scriptor Effectiveness. So this is where I'm going to struggle because I'm colorblind. So seeing the differences between these, I'm terrible. And that's one thing I would say about Riot. They're not the friendliest when it comes to colorblind people, because I can't really tell. But the second problem is that scripting is rather effective, and to their credit, if you can call it that, scripters have gotten quite good at playing without the use of their hands. When piloted optimally, scripter win rates hover around 80% in ranked games, continually propelling the unyielding supply of accounts through the ladder. And some people may be like, what does that mean? So the most effective scripters, and this is why it is hard to detect sometimes, are not the obvious ones. I've been in games, I'm sure some of you have been, they're rare, and that's the point of an obvious scripter. I remember being in games years ago with a Xerath that just didn't care, was scripting. It was very, very obvious. They just didn't care. And that's called like rage scripting. They don't care, they're just ruining the game. It's very obvious. The good scripters are the ones that you can tone it down, by the way, like some advanced scripts and cheats I know in Call of Duty, you can turn down the aimbot. You can make it miss. You can, in League, I presume, do the exact same thing. You can make it less good to be a bit more human, but you also can turn it on and off during the game. So if you use it, turn it off and you're just randomly laning so it doesn't look dodgy, but then you have that big fight, let's say you're fighting in top lane, you turn it on during the fight, you then dodge everything, and then you turn it off again. That is the most effective way of what people do when it comes to scripting. And that's, by the way, if you're wondering how would these players get to Master, Grandmaster, Challenger, that is those players. They're actively turning it off, turning it on at the right times, not having it on the whole time, which is true. So I'm trying to, again, my eyes are so bad. So again, I'm trying to match the symbols. Again, if people in the comments want to try and help me out here, but Challenger, that looks about here to me, like that color maybe. It's hard to tell. But again, the most of them peak around, 5-ish%. Some, obviously, this rating, which again is hard to, I can't tell, is that bronze maybe? 15%. But, we don't want any cheaters, like actual scripters. And by the way, this is no bots, at all. This is just scripting. 15% it peaked in a certain rank. That's pretty high. 15% of games had a scripter in it. That's high. And again, that's where people go, really, that's true? That's my point. It's the more advanced scripts are hard to detect nowadays. It's not as obvious as, Jesus, that's just a robot playing. Like, some of the Xeraths, and I will say, I'll point Xerath out. Some of the Xeraths, I even had one today, they weren't very good. And then their ultimates were a bit like, And the ultimates sometimes didn't match the player. That player could be scripting. They could be turning off the script, playing normally, and the moment they're going for an ultimate, they turn it on. That's the point. It's hard to detect for a human when it's a bit suspicious. But, a kernel-based anti-cheat like Vanguard will be able to tell. So the polyphonic rainbow you are now bearing witness to is the percentage of ranked games completed with a cheater, bucketed by what tier the scripter was at the end of the game. You are reading that correctly. Oh, wow. So more than 10% of Master Plus games had a cheater in them. Even Challenger, which we manually audit on a regular cadence, has suffered from a significant number of cheaters. Statistically, this is what an analyst referred to as a bad line, and we're seriously not jazzed about this trend. Worse still, we can see how this trend continues, but the current anti-cheat is beaten. And they're admitting that. They're just saying the current anti-cheat, it's beat. It's too old, it's out of date, it's been beaten. And that's why they partially need Vanguard. So yeah, literally. So I guess is this line up here. I guess that one is this one. So that, yeah, that's 13-ish% of Master Odd games, Diamond Master games, had a scripter in it. That's crazy, by the way. Oh my god. PacMan, not a typo. So for reasons we're about to get into, we didn't want to push the Vanguard button until we absolutely had to. So up until now, League has been surviving for nearly 6 years on an anti-tamper called PacMan. However, due to an unrelenting volley of cheats and bans, the anti-cheat technology space moves at recursive light speed. After factoring in for hyperbolic time dilation, the result, Bistro math, makes PacMan roughly 250 million cheat years old, pushing the pre-Mesozoic boundary. So they're just saying it's ancient, basically. So PacMan's primary objective is to make analysis of the game binary more difficult, and this includes hiding the anti-cheat detections that it appends to the game client. The problem is that dumping the game binary, basically, and bypassing the anti-cheat checks are now something closer to training exercise, and it's one that's only been made potentially easier by the breach earlier last year. So obviously, remember, Riot's code got leaked last year, and that probably included PacMan. PacMan was never meant to last this long, and iterating on it has become prohibitively expensive. So this one is LoL anti-cheat scripting bans aggregated weekly. So it does show how many bans they're doing. So weekly bans, this is in the 1,000, by the way. Some of these are manual, some of these are automatic. So blue obviously is the majority. So in their peak, they banned nearly 50,000 scripting accounts earlier this year. Literally earlier this year. That's crazy. And by the way, if you're seeing a trend, and this is what I have heard as well, that it's kind of gotten a bit out of control recently when it comes to cheaters and botted accounts. There is a theory that I have heard that basically because they know, the cheaters know that Vanguard is coming, they're just going nuts with cheats at the moment. Because they're like, well, Vanguard's coming, we're not going to be able to probably cheat as much anymore, so let's just go for it. Why not? So that's what I have heard. So, yeah. So this chart attempts to visualize our emotional turmoil. That's funny. Though its true intensity could be never captured in two-dimensional form. Pictured are weekly LoL scripting bans bucketed based on those issued for a detection within PacMan, blue, versus those that are manually banned, which is red, obviously, reviewed by an anti-cheat agent, so an employee. As PacMan effectiveness wanes, we are unable to keep up with the scripting demand. An infinite number of hands reviewing an infinite number of scripters is not strategically viable option. If we want a fair video game, we must upgrade. So hopefully all this so far to a lot of people who may be skeptical about needing it has made you kind of go, oh, actually, this is probably needed. Because there's scripters who are actively playing in your ranked games that you may not know about it. So giving them an advantage where they, to the very basis, without that script, they would not be in the game with you. They're a terrible player. They're using a script to try and be the same rating as you. That's a big thing. So yeah, hopefully it'll make a big difference in one scripting, but also the bot account market. Hopefully it'll be destroyed. But yeah, into Vanguard. So, like most anti-cheats, Vanguard is made up of preventative and detective layers. We endeavor to outright block as many cheating methods as possible, but in gap areas where preventing a cheat locally and obviously would too easily allow our vector to be audited, we instead passively detect the intrusion and take action on a delay. Putting our darkest detection magic behind the scrutiny of our server gives us the opportunity to hide our methods by occurring signals to the developer through seemingly arbitrary bans. This mouthful is often called the cat and mouse game. I mentioned that, I think, even earlier. And it's a absurd waltz that every anti-cheat developer worldwide steps to the daily. It's the cat and mouse chase that the anti-cheat is constantly trying to chase the cheaters because they're constantly trying to develop past the anti-cheat. It's a spiral. It's a loop. It's an infinite whatever. So best anti-cheat is the fastest anti-cheat. So by uncoupling ourselves from the game client and moving more to Vanguard to the server, we can deliver checks to riskier players, making our intrusion detection far more targeted and much faster. So you can see here, Valerant, obviously the FPS game, and League, the difference between them. So number of ranked games per cheater, this is before ban. So I can kind of tell the difference though. Valorant's the bottom one, League's this one, the lighter one. So when Valerant first came out, I guess, it had a lot of cheaters. Then Vanguard was implemented and started to learn. And by the way, Vanguard does learn. It learns things. So it's learning. And right now in Vanguard, it has probably what? 15% and this is how many games a cheater gets to play before they get banned. So in Vanguard, a cheater, when the game launched, they could play roughly 30 games of ranked, then they get banned. Now the cheater gets about 15 games and they're banned. In League, well, now, which is the beginning of 2024, the cheater gets to play nearly 40 games before they're banned. And I'm going to be honest, I don't even know if that's true. I've seen probably more, but 40 is a lot. 40 is a lot more than 15 in Valorant, So hopefully that will be a better system. And obviously what we all want is after the first game, they're detected and banned. But yeah. So to demonstrate, here's a time to action on both games. Though it's not totally fair comparison, cheating is far more sophisticated in first-person shooters, which is true. So even though LoL games are shorter in duration, League was already heavily favored to win this race anyway. So, however, because of Vanguard's aerodynamic design and the speed at which it can be adapted, is becomes so large a chore to stay undetected that most cheaters don't even bother. Instead, they rage for a few games and get banned just as nature intended. So, like I said earlier, they just rage script. That is quite commonly known in the game industry. So, yeah. Environmental scrutiny. So where Vanguard starts to further distinguish itself from other anti-cheats is its enforcement of security standards even further to the left of the game client on the operating system itself. So this is the kernel base that a lot of people are not happy with. So several of these requirements aren't totally frictionless, but they inflict many hurdles onto those that want to distribute cheats successfully. For this reason, we're constantly having to make trade-offs of the security of the game versus the ease which players can access it. So TPM 2.0. So it is worth knowing TPM 2.0 is something with Windows 11. It is included in Windows 11. And if you've got Windows 10, it may have been included on your motherboard. But yeah, if you've got Windows 11, you have this anyway. But LoL and Vanguard comes with TPM 2.0 requirement. And while Microsoft originally intended to require one for all new Windows 11 installations, the actual implementation of this enforcement was relatively weak and easily bypassable. We took them up on their original offer and said elected to enforce it ourselves. Oh, wow. Okay, so they spoke to Windows about this. So a select few Windows 11 users may find their ability to play League is impacted, especially if you modified registry keys to bypass the environment. So if you potentially, there's that, where I'm reading this, is if you have a dodgy version of Windows that you haven't activated, you might not be able to play. If you're running a dodgy version of Windows 11, that is. Windows 10, by the way, in just my own PC knowledge, will not be affected. So this is only for Windows 11. I'm running Windows 10, so I will not be running TPM 2.0. Windows 10 doesn't have it. You won't need it. So TPM stands for Trusted Platform Module. We require it for two reasons. The first is because it adds security to cert signing validation, something we rely on to know if other software can be trusted. But second, and more important, is because it acts as an extremely non-fungible form of hardware ID. So I've also spoken about this before. So hardware ID is a very effective way on banning people out, because IP bans don't work. You can change your IP in 30 seconds. You can spoof your hardware ID. It's a lot harder to do, and if you slip up once, you're then caught and your whole system is triggered by it. And hardware ID, just to make it very clear, it's not as simple as, because the old version of hardware ID bans, when it first came out, if you were detected as a cheater and got hardware ID banned, you could change your hard drives, load the game on a different hard drive, and you're probably okay. Not anymore. Different hardware ID has again come along in a lot of ways, and new versions of hardware ID, in the way that I can basically explain it as best as possible, you have a profile on every single game that you play that has hardware ID, and it basically makes a profile of you, user 25, let's just say, and it has your serial codes of every single component on your PC. So it has your CPU, GPU, RAM, hard drives, everything is registered. Every single component you have in your PC is registered. And if you get detected as a cheater, all of those codes will be then taken as a cheat or a cheater, and it's banned all. So even if you go, I'll swap out my hard drives, well, your RAM and your GPU and your CPU is still on the ban list. You cannot play. If you changed everything about your PC apart from one thing, you are then banned. You cannot play. You'd have to have a brand new machine. So it's a very effective way of doing it. It does have negatives, and I will say that. I'm not here to say everything's positive. I got banned in Call of Duty years ago. Some people may remember this from Warzone, and I never cheated, never did anything wrong. I would have remained banned to this day if I wasn't a content creator, and I'll say that right now, because it enabled me to get in touch with creator support at Activision. And I did, and I spoke to the guy, and he explained to me what happened. And obviously I've never cheated, don't have any intention to. And he basically explained to me that my hardware ID was picked up as a same ID as someone that banned. And the reason why that happens, some manufacturers, I guess to cut corners or something, they don't give every single component a separate ID. They may, a few thousand components may share the same hardware ID. And that's what happened to me, is a cheater got banned playing COD their hardware ID of one of the components was one of the same as my hardware ID components. So I got banned because they thought it was the same machine. It wasn't. I didn't ban. I didn't cheat, and I actually got banned like 2 or 3 times, and I kept having to go to him like, "What the hell's going on here? Stop!" And it's basically it's like, well, the hardware ID that your machine is banned because it's up on our hardware ID, but we know you're not cheating and stuff. So if hardware developers cut corners, which obviously has happened, it's technically a bad thing. It's also a very bad thing, obviously, for the second-hand market. If a cheater gets hardware ID'd on a banned on a game, sells their PC secondhand because they can't play their game anymore, that person goes, "Oh, I got my new gaming PC. Yeah, it's secondhand, but I can play Call of Duty or League now," and they lo and behold are banned from the game straight away because the machine is hardware ID banned. That sucks. So yeah. Anyway, so the driver. So anti-cheat drivers are not new, and we didn't invent them. The purpose of our driver component is not to collect more information. And, just to say here, this is what I said earlier, we can already see everything we need to from user mode. Yeah, they can. You've installed the League client. They can see whatever they wanted to. They just don't. Instead, Vanguard's primary goal is to confirm the game is currently running in an environment we can trust. So this reduces the number of detections we have to create, the amount of data we have to collect, and most importantly, the ease with which any prospective cheater can access the game. We want to move as much of our anti-cheat into a preventative pattern as is feasible and safe. Windows is easily corruptible, and the current threat landscape necessitates that we validate its defenses ourselves. We need to be able to trust what operating system is telling us about the Valerant process. Otherwise, cheaters could compromise it. So middleman are checks, eat hot chip, and lie that everything, whatever. So basically, they're saying you can't trust Windows to do anything. We have to take it into our own hands. So our final timeline of everything is a look at Valorant's percentage of ranked games with a cheater. Beautifully contrasted to dishes served with the Vanguard kitchen. Even when the going gets rough, Vanguard's hardware identifiers and system requirements help us hold the fort. But this is what really highlights everything we're missing today in League. So you can see here, so percentage of games with a cheater versus Vanguard actions. So Vanguard at one point did, I guess, suspension thousands. So I think detected cheating, I presume, is this. Oh yeah, percentage of games is the line. So percentage of games that had cheaters in it in Valorant has never gotten to 5%. It's not getting. It's like 1% of games have a cheater in it in Valorant. But then you can see detection has been up, to near, 10-15%. So Vanguard has been detecting people trying to cheat, but not allowing them in games. It works, which is great. Which is awesome. So again, I don't want to take crazy long, obviously, to do this. So this is the big one. So why is it always on? So hopefully this will start kind of clearing the air of people being worried about having it installed on their PC. As I've said earlier, as someone that's done a computer science degree and everything, I'm not a tinfoil hat person. I don't think companies are only looking to collect our data. And I've said before, if you're holding a smartphone in your pocket, you've got more things to worry about than Valorant or Vanguard coming. You're holding a device that's constantly listening to you anyway. If you've got an Amazon Alexa or something, that's listening to you all the time as well. Like, it doesn't mean it's good, by the way, but those are they are more problematic than Vanguard. So Vanguard is not really running all the time. So the driver loads on boot, but nothing is making calls to it, and there is no network connectivity unless you go onto one of Riot's games. So it's just sitting there, waiting, basically. And for those that are probably wondering why if it's not doing anything, why does it have to be there, like, ready? Basically, I think the idea of it is so it can, in a way, wait for a cheat to get started. If you start your Windows and then you start you turn on your PC and then someone goes, "Oh, I'm going to try and circumnavigate it by running a virtual network or something. I'm going to run a virtual machine." Well, Vanguard probably is going to spot that. That's the point. But if you allow it to run a virtual machine first, then load Vanguard, well, then that's going to compromise Vanguard, because then it might be looking at the virtual machine, not the actual computer it's actually on. It's a bit technical, but you know, it's the way that it is. So when you launch League, the Vanguard client contacts the driver to confirm that everything is 100%, and if so, you will receive a valid anti-cheat session, and you may connect to the game server. Instructions from the client then start enabling features within the driver to watch for things that might tamper with the signed League process to prevent them. You can always disable the driver, whether you'd like to need a fresh. So just to say, if you turn on your PC and you don't want Vanguard, even though it's not looking at anything, you can right click it, click exit. But if you wanted to then play a Riot game, League or Vanguard or Valorant, you have to restart your PC to boot it back up. It will. You can't just like click it while you've exited it while your PC is on. It boots with Windows, because otherwise you could circumnavigate it with cheats. So LoL and Vanguard. So as Vanguard rolls out to League, we will see a dramatic decrease in the number of cheaters, but the fun doesn't stop there. So with heightened VM protection, we'll drive up the cost of botting and inflict significant friction onto the reoffenders. Bot supply for boosting it will dry up, and bypassing bans will no longer be by another level 30, which is great. With the device fingerprinting, Vanguard also gives us a renewed opportunity to sink teeth into boosting, smurfing, and account compromise. We'll be able to revoke reward boosters didn't deserve, get smurfs to their proper rating faster, which is good, and maybe even invalidate unfair pre-mates. Now, that comment was one that I was like, what does that mean? So it's something that I've taken offense to for a while, but it doesn't seem a lot of the player base do. You all know what I think about duo queue. I don't think it should exist. One of the big reasons that I don't think it exists is because it basically is legal boosting. It has been for ages. You can have a fresh level 30 account, duo queue with someone who's level 500, who's been stuck for 50 years. Obviously, League hasn't been out for 50 years. But that player can get boosted legally in duo queue, get to, let's say, Diamond playing Yumi on a crazy smurf, like with a smurf, and then they get the Diamond rewards. That's not fair. So what Riot is saying is they will potentially invalidate that climb. They will not give the rewards out if that's happening. That's insane. That literally gets rid of potentially duo queue boosting. That's huge. That's great. So also increased client security and less scripting means that League team will be able to leverage more mechanically rewarding designs like combos, timing windows, and executes. Rank statistics won't be as poisoned by scripters, facilitating easier balancing of high risk and reward champions, and games ruined by cheaters can eventually be undone, returning LP to those effective. So some of you may have seen that, by the way. If there's a game with a cheater in it and the game randomly gets through, it happens in Valorant, the game freezes, a thing comes up on the screen going cheater detected, game is being like cancelled. You don't lose any LP. No matter what team you're on, you don't lose LP. The cheater does, but also the cheater just gets banned, and then you go on to the next game. That's incredible. That's amazing. Where before, if it was a rage scripter going on in one of your games, you'd have to play it out and you just lose LP. That sucks. And by the way, that might also impact the botted accounts. It may detect them and go, no, that's a botted account. No, the game doesn't count. That's crazy. That's awesome. And Riot's even saying, so part of their balance over the last few years and new champions, they've had to, because their anti-cheat is bad, they've had to consider, what happens if a scripter gets this champion? They won't have to think about that anymore, because scripting is more or less going to be eliminated. That's crazy. It's great. So until next time, so it's 30 odd people doing it and all that. So, it's worth saying is this is not bulletproof. There will be some cracks in it, but like what we saw in the data when it came to the other game, Valorant, it learns over time, so it will actually get better. So some of the FAQ, so isn't Vanguard spyware? So that's been a big one that people have. So no, but I'm sure those words in the exact order are mathematically the fastest way to farm retweets. Content algorithms everywhere are programmably addicted to the clicks, and the word spyware or rootkit can generate a mathematical. So basically what Riot is saying, which is also true, is there's a lot of people out there that love to fearmonger, and a lot of people on the internet obviously are not very trusting anyway. So when people say something like, Vanguard is spyware, it gets more likes, it gets more traction anyway, so it kind of creates a rolling effect. So each region must adhere to its own specific policy and regulators. Tencent, for example, has their own anti-cheat for games operated in their region, including Riot's titles, for which they are the China publisher. While we do share cheats, we find that our respective teams can make decisions for them. We have no need to share anything else. So Tencent's anti-cheat that's in China is not Vanguard. It's different. They have their own proprietary one. That is not Vanguard. We've met with Tencent's anti-cheat team maybe 3 times in a decade, and while only things we exchanged were high fives and ban counts, they both won contests, of course they would. We don't share Vanguard or its code, and anti-cheat data has never left Riot's warehouse. So hopefully that helps people. Again, I knew obviously it wasn't going to be the same. It isn't. So yeah. So again, why do you need anti-cheat? I think they explained that. There's way too many of them. Bots are out of control and all that. Yeah, Linux is an unfortunate thing. So Linux is no longer going to be supported, but there's 800 Linux users on League. Less than 1,000. It's not worth developing it for that amount of people. So, yep. Have you tried to ask cheaters to nicely? So we once let cheaters submit handwritten apologies for unbans. Some promised to stop. Many stiffed kids on Fiverr to write their apology for them. And 91% of the unbanned accounts were banned again for scripting within the next 6 months. Yeah, because again, these players, again, without sounding bad, they are bad players. They know they are bad players. And if you want to even get to them into the psychology of it, they know they suck at video games. And they probably grew up sucking at video games and their friends being better than them. And that will get to you mentally. I get that. And they cannot accept it. And, you know, I'm sure there's a game out there that everybody is good at. But for these players who script on League, who aimbot on Call of Duty, they have chosen, no, this is my game. This is the game that I want to play, and I will get to a high rating by any means necessary. And that's in their own mind. They play kind of like mental gymnastics of going, I'll script. I remember, some people may remember years ago, and I'm talking over 7 years ago probably, there was a Katarina guy. I think it ended up on Reddit. And it was a clip of a guy streaming, and he was blatantly scripting. He wasn't hiding it. It was on his screen while he was streaming, all the stuff with scripts. And people were like, what the hell? And basically the clip was someone in his chat going, why are you scripting? That's crazy. You're just going to get banned. And him trying to justify it. And his justification was something on the lines of, I know I'm bad, but I want to be good, or I want to be this rating. I should be allowed to try and get to that rating by any means necessary. And that was the thought process. They don't believe it's cheating. They just see it as, I'm getting to a rating by any means necessary, which is crazy. But yeah. Okay, so this was quite a big one. So in 2020, it bricked a keyboard. And I honestly think it was only one. But obviously that's bad. Hopefully Riot paid for that guy's keyboard. But in essence, I heard about this at the time as well. So when Vanguard came out in Valerant, it killed someone's keyboard. It might even killed a couple other things as well. But in essence, what happened, and you can read that if you want to, but I kind of know the story anyway. But what was happening is the cheaters, obviously trying their best to circumnavigate it any way impossible, they found out a way that they could use the kind of the hardware and the driver software within a keyboard. They loaded the cheats through that, and it was actually, you can see here, the driver was responsible for keyboard lighting. So the lights that come up on your keyboard, they tried to load the scripts through that software, so it bricked the keyboard because it's like it's detected a cheat. Poof. So again, you can't, you know, the person that obviously had their keyboard bricked, they were trying to cheat. And what probably then happened, it is worth knowing, is Vanguard, and where originally the person tried to cheat, it potentially bricked innocent people's keyboards who had a common keyboard, who had the same keyboard as the scripter. So then Vanguard detected that driver as a cheat, and anyone loading the game with the same driver, the same keyboard, it detected, it's the cheat, ban. So that probably did happen. But yeah, so that is not good. What about false positives? So players claiming a false ban are one of the 7 categories ordered by likelihood. Here we go. So they are presenting a fictional narrative. They tested a cheat on a Smurf, poisoning their main through hardware linking. So again, hey, I'm cheating on a Smurf. I'm not cheating on my main. Riot don't see the difference. You're cheating. You're going to get banned on both. They shared their account with someone who cheated, usually a paid boosting service or relative, which is very common. It's worth knowing if you pay for a booster. They are the most common players probably for scripting and using cheats. They repeatedly queued with a booster that used cheats and ate a 100-day ban for their trouble. So if you do duo queue with a known cheater, you also can get in trouble. Their account was stolen by a serial rage hacker who used it to torture other players for exactly 6 games. So that's quite a small... That's a very specific example. They used cheating software for another game, and Vanguard unfortunately picked it up. Well, a cheat's a cheat in a way. And they have malware installed that platforms the same operations as a cheat. Okay, well, there you go. So there's that. Why not just sue the cheat developers? I think they have tried to do that. And remember, I think, was it Blizzard? I think Blizzard sued one and they won, and it obviously ruined those people's lives. But yeah, so our legal team couldn't be more hyped. With Vanguard, few developers have the persistence necessary to warrant it. Most don't attempt bypasses. Yeah, they're just saying it's not worth it a lot of the time. This is something that I've actually said. So Cheater Island sounds very amusing. So you put all the cheaters together. I think that would be funny. But we have chosen instead to spend all our engineering time on preventing the cheats in the first place. We don't have infinite money, and using resources for in-game features that exist solely to torture the cheaters we've already caught would be kind of like take the ante out of AntiCheat. However, should my budget quintuple, you will find me advocating for cheaters to be grounded. I will call your parents. I mean, yeah, a lot of them probably going to be quite young. Obviously, this is could even say a bit of a dig at Call of Duty, because Call of Duty's AntiCheat, by the way, does do things like this. It doesn't put them specifically in a cheater's island, I believe. What if you haven't heard what Warzone does one of 2 things. One, it makes them do no damage. If it detects them as a cheater before they get banned, they play a game of Warzone, they're shooting people, their guns do no damage, which obviously is very annoying for them. So they can't win, they can't do anything. And secondly, the other way that they do it, they've got a few ways, which are all kind of funny. Everyone else is invisible to them. So if you're a cheater in Call of Duty, the game detects you, everyone else is invisible. You can't see anyone, but they can see you plain as day. So they just kill you. So that is quite funny. This one is actually interesting to me. So what about OS X? So Mac. You can't run, obviously, kernel-based systems on Mac because it's not a kernel-based system. It's not Windows, it's Mac OS. So there isn't much tooling on OS X for script development, although we need it the need is growing. For now, Mac won't have Vanguard, but we've still got a few bullets in the chamber for when cheaters inevitably try to exploit this. It has been pointed out to me that each chamber can hold only 1 bullet. I reject this hypothesis on the basis of improved throughput. Why shouldn't we fire 2 bullets at once? 2 times the damage with the same amount of reloads. So they're not really answering this. So that's one thing I would say is I have heard other people also, you can, and well, there's already a counter to it, but cheaters might just move to Mac. Obviously that does cost, you know, if someone watching this right now is a scripting League of Legends player that has a Windows PC, that would require them to have to buy a Mac machine. That's spending money to continue to cheat where it may not work. So a lot of people will just not do that, clearly. I have heard some people going, oh, what happens if you run a virtual machine running, you know, OS X? You can do that, but that I think is also part of the reasoning that Vanguard is always running. If Vanguard detects your system boot up, it probably just takes a very quick flash of what your PC is, and then suddenly you're trying to run the game on a virtual network or a virtual machine, it ain't gonna like that. I can nearly guarantee Vanguard will not allow the game to be played on a virtual machine, which includes trying to run a virtual OS X. It just won't work. That's my that's my bet anyway. So does Vanguard break third-party tools? So developers not using official APIs will find it difficult. So you can get, if you're an official developer that Riot agree to, you get the official API to basically encode within your own program that basically talks to League and eventually Vanguard and goes, hey, we're cool. We're using the official API. And every single software that uses the official API, Riot will know what they are. That's the whole point. So a cheater will not be able to use the official API, for example. So yeah. So they're just saying that if you use the API, your tool should be fine. Why not AI anti-cheat? So we do use machine models to predict likelihood of players cheating, etc. So Valorant and LoL both rely heavily on art upon the art of gathering or obscuring information. So the cheats like these are very damaging, ultimately necessitating traditional anti-cheat anyway. And even solely for aimbots, recall just isn't that great. The best models can identify around 30 to 50% of cheats on the server side. So basically saying, instead of just having a anti-cheat that's non-kernel, non-invasive, why can't you just have an AI that's like only learning and not invasive? Right, it's just saying they're not as effective yet. Maybe probably in the future, but they're not there yet. Why not open source the driver? Anti-cheat is, yeah, I mean, that's just obvious because you don't want them to learn anything about it. What happens if I'm having technical issues with Vanguard? So these days, Vanguard suffers from a lot of attribution bias. The majority of bugs we see actually come from external sources that are difficult to lock down. One of the largest proprietors recently has been the distribution of pirated software that toggles a registry option, dev override enable, and allows different versions of key Windows files to be loaded into all running processors. Now we can't say exactly what your intention would be doing something like that, wink, but we can say that Vanguard doesn't like when corrupted Windows files are loaded into Valerant. We use a great many of them to do tampering checks ourselves. We'd also recommend that you be careful when you turn off Windows Defenders 4 because it's doing what it says on the tin, defending Windows. So this could be a big one, and again, we won't go too many more. If Vanguard was so good, why do you still see cheaters on Valorant? So for starters, we do not action every cheat or account instantly. Every ban is like broadcasting a signal to the developer that their cheat has been detected and they need to update it in order to slow progression of our cheat arm race. We delay bans based on a sophistication and visibility of the cheat and cheater respectively. But also, cheaters are going to cheat. We've really driven our preventative layer as far as feasibly go without colliding with existing setup and hurting legitimate players. We'll detect them soon enough, but not before they snap a video, reportedly drop it on TikTok for the highest add to malware click-through rate ever before realized. And because it says live does not mean you're watching a live stream. Don't download garbage. True. I doubt it will help that much against DDoS potentially. Why can't we put Vanguard in Vietnam only? That would just make all the scripters move to the Philippines. Why can't we put Vanguard? Yes, yeah. What is your personally incompatible with Vanguard? So obviously, if you just don't agree and you're like, I'm not having an anti-cheat kernel-based system. So we get it, and with 100% respect your decision, hopefully one day the platforms our games will offer developers the security features required to prevent cheating without necessitating extracurricular software. However, if your beef is only about data privacy at Riot, running the game client or running Vanguard makes not one bit difference. And that's what I said earlier at the beginning of this video. If you've played League for the past 10 years with a Riot client, they could have anything from your PC anyway. Doesn't make a difference. That's the point. It really doesn't. When it comes to like, and again, majority of people trying to fearmonger don't know about PCs at all. It doesn't make a difference. Riot don't look into your data. They're not going to. They don't need to. They have no incentive to. They're making a video game, and this is just to try and make cheaters not be able to play the video game. They don't care. And again, it's the biggest thing too. What I've sometimes said is, you can be into some weird stuff online and all that. The government probably know. They don't care. Nobody cares. Like, unless it's illegal, which again, Riot is not going to go into that because that's not their job. But people don't really care, you know? So data can still be retrieved from user mode, and we're all engineers with the same studio with the same goals, none of which are collecting your personal information. If Riot hasn't earned your trust, do not run our software. Yeah, that's the thing. If you so far have not had Riot's full trust, why are you running their software already? Doesn't make sense. But if you've played Valorant, if you've played League, if you've played Legends of Runeterra, if you've played any of their games, they could have had your data anyway. And guess what? They don't, because they don't care. They're not looking into it. So what does it actually collect? So Riot only collects what we need to run and secure our games. More data is just more risk for us, which is true, because then it could leak and then they get in massive trouble. And we don't want anything except the bare minimum required to do the job. Done. So locally, Vanguard has system hooks to run its protections, but we're not shipping back your files or your documents. Like most anti-malware and anti-cheat systems, we leverage a technique called signature scanning to determine if a series or bytes in memory matches a known cheating application. These results are only true or false it was present or it wasn't. So it doesn't kind of go back like, yeah, here's the file. I've got the file. It doesn't do that. It just goes, yeah, it existed. Riot has, you know, let's say all the cheating software locally installed themselves, and it just scans your PC to see if any of that matches. And it either comes back false, cool, you're good, go play the game. Oh, true, you have the same matching file that this cheating application we have is, you've got the cheat loaded. That's all it does. So other detections, we need snapshots to scrutinize in post. And there are chances that these can contain PII. For example, we log the file path of every library loaded into League, and this could contain your username. Whoa. We do things like this after a cheat is discovered. We stand a chance to detect cheaters who have already used it instead of those moving forward. This data is only in warm storage for 14 days, and we will never use it for anything other that is not cheat detection. So they're basically saying the only thing that they potentially will have is the file path. So for example, if I right click this, I'm going to right click something on my thing, I click properties. Okay, you can do this at home if you want to. On my desktop, I right click a Photoshop thing, and it says, see, this is what Riot, by the way, will have for whatever they might be looking for. This is it. C : /users / mine says Apex Gaming because it's an Apex machine / desktop. That's where this file is saved. And that's all that it would be potentially going back to Riot if they think it's a cheat. It's just the file path. If you really don't want Riot to have your name, change your user if you really need to. But obviously, if you've ever bought something on League, they have your name and payment information anyway. So, like, it's where the fear-mongering, I think, has just gotten out of control. But there we go. That was it. Quite long, but I think it was worth doing. Hopefully, it's going to calm people down in two ways. One, I think we need it. It's actually been more cheating than even I expected, but also not just, obviously, there's been more scripting, I would also say, that I expected, but also the botted accounts are going to be affected. And also, oh, like unfair duos may not be able to get their rank anymore. Boosting was going to be affected. It's all good. It's all good for us players that actually want a good game of League of Legends. This is a good thing. And I would even say sometimes the loudest voices online that may be on Twitter or Reddit, the most loud voices about not wanting it, maybe for one of the reasons that they're trying to not let this happen is they might be using one of the systems in a bad way. They may be duo queuing with a known booster. They may be selling botted accounts in the black market. You don't know. Like, as much as I hate to say it, a lot of League content creators are sponsored by dodgy websites that sell botted accounts. So if other League creators are saying this is terrible, this is bad, they might be financially told by their partner, this is going to cripple us. And that League content creator is looking at their sponsor and going, oh God, I'm going to get less money. You don't even know that. It's crazy, you know? It's the thing. So anyway, that's going to be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you've learned a little bit. I definitely have. But yeah, there's way more cheaters in League than I even expected. And again, it's because scripts have become a bit more sophisticated, and you need a more sophisticated anti-cheat to fight them. But that's going to be it. If you guys did enjoy, though, let me know what you think down below. Have a proper good conversation. I'll be interested to see what you guys think. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time. Peace.
Call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace. Restore our glory to live forever. Bring down the dark regime and